I was always very, people move to town. I just encourage people to do that, play for people is, there's no better way for someone to get to know you, get to know how you sound than just, playing for them.
I have known today's guest for quite some time, and it's so cool to see his career continue to grow and develop and thrive and prosper. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations. We are chatting today with my longtime buddy, Christian Dillingham, a D'Addario artist, by the way, which is very cool. And we chatted with him at the D'Addario booth at the International Society of Bassists 2019 convention. Christian is working in the world of jazz. He's working in the world of classical music. He's doing all kinds of great stuff. He and I used to play in various gig orchestras together in the Chicago area. We talk about that and much more in today's conversation. I want to give a quick shout out here at the beginning to our sponsors, Upton Bass, Modacity, D'Addario Strings, Steve Swan String Bass, A440 Violin Shop, and Colstein Music. Thank you so much, and here we go with today's episode. Christian Dillingham.
Hello, good afternoon.
I feel bad for seeing you and less than 1 minute later putting you in the podcast chair. And I should have had you on a long time ago. But we've known each other for how long? It's a while now.
Yeah, I moved to Chicago in 2006. So.
And before you moved, you got in touch with me because John Grillo, right, who we both know and probably have many great stories that we could share. We could spend hours just sharing those.
Oh, yeah.
But he recommended, I think, that you reach out to me. So I remember we were in touch even before you moved.
Yeah, and you provided a lot of helpful information on what to do when arriving to town, and was very, very helpful.
And you've done many great things since arriving there, which I want to talk about. But we also, one of my favorite memories, we played in this bass quartet. It was like a quintet, whatever, with Michael Hovnanian and several others. Right. And we were awesome at playing, not as good as at getting gigs. And I think we never played once. But we brought excellent beers, and we had epically great rehearsals and hangs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I remember 10 degrees out, and going up to Jonathan Segas's place and
playing bass and drinking good beer. Yeah.
So tell people about what you're doing right now in Chicago.
I still do a fair amount of orchestral work, but I'm playing in a lot of different jazz groups of various singers, lots of different instrumentalists playing original music, and next month I'll be in China for the bulk of July with Victor Goines Quartet at Jazz at Lincoln Center has a venue in Shanghai, so I'm playing maybe more heavily on the jazz side of things these days, but the orchestral groups that I've been playing with in Chicago, I'm still playing with.
Man, congratulations, too. That's cool. It's cool that side of your career has heated up. I know you always played jazz, because I remember you talking about, especially over the summer, maybe when you first moved, playing a lot of jazz gigs.
Yeah. I have always done both. I actually started with jazz and didn't play in orchestra until I got to college, and then it was a lot of catching up. But when I first moved to Chicago, doing the civic thing, I kind of wanted to focus on that and not get too sidetracked. But when that term ended, then it was kind of getting back to that world.
I have this fond or great memory. Probably not as great a memory for you, but I was living in Hyde Park, and I remember chatting with you, and you found a place on the south side of Chicago somewhere, and it seemed like a great deal, and then you went there at night. And you were like, "There's no way we can move to this neighborhood." It was super. Do you remember?
Well, that was a long time ago.
It was a very long time ago. I know, but I remember having the conversation, and because it was fairly close to where I was living, but it was just enough on the other side of that area. But it was several years ago. It's probably changed too.
Oh yeah. That area has changed a lot, and that was actually around the time when there was a possibility of the Olympics coming.
Yes, that's right.
And it's definitely changed changed quite a bit. But all that being said, I was able to get out of that situation. So.
I think I have over 100 times walked from Hyde Park, which is about 5 or 6 miles south of downtown Chicago, to downtown Chicago. And I did it along the lake, and I did it through the neighborhoods, and I never had one problem. I know people probably have had problems, but I've never had one problem with those neighborhoods. Now I moved to San Francisco, and it's like the land of insanity. I've called 911 more times in my few years in San Francisco. I'd never called 911 in Chicago except when my car caught fire and exploded.
Yeah.
But I found a dead body. Walking around with my wife and I, multiple like brushes with extremely disturbed people.
Yeah.
Car break-ins right in front of me. So.
Yeah. Well, I am proud to be a South Sider. I've been on the South Side for about 3.5 years now, and it's been my best experience of living in Chicago. Actually, unfortunately, it's a whole nother. We could spend hours talking about the misrepresentation of the South Side, but it's been a great place for me to be.
And I only lived, in terms of the South Side, in Hyde Park, and then I lived in the South Loop, which is, I guess, kind of the beginning of the South Side. But I fell in love with the South Side, and are there problems? Sure, but I just found the neighborhoods fascinating, and I explored on foot, on train, on bike, like all over the place. And I really. That was my favorite, much more than the North Side. Sorry, North Side. But I really enjoyed those. And it's like I'm fascinated. So with the South Side, when I go to Chicago sometimes, I'll just like get to Chicago, check in and whatever, and I'll just like walk to Hyde Park.
Yeah.
I feel really at home, especially in that neighborhood.
It's a different feel for sure.
Yeah.
I have to say I think we both share the love of the city of Chicago. However, the only unfortunate things I've had happen to me were when I lived on the north side.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And just in terms of neighborhood, community, I didn't experience what I've experienced in my neighborhood currently. I never, most of the times neighbors weren't not so likely to talk to you on, in some of those north side neighborhoods. So
San Francisco is the only place I've lived in my life. We'll get back to music, but it's just interesting because we haven't seen each other in a long time, and I put you on the mic immediately. So I just want to talk to Christian about these things. San Francisco is the only place I've lived where I don't feel safe walking around at night.
Wow.
Like, and it's not that I'm worried about actively being attacked or something, and I live in a nice part of town, but there's something about it gets dark, and there are just people kind of like shuffling around everywhere, and I loved in whatever neighborhood in Chicago, going for an evening walk by myself and be listening to music or whatever.
Right.
And I almost got mugged in San Francisco, not even doing that in the middle of the day, but like at night, I have just, maybe I'm just having bad luck, but I like, there's just like lots of tents everywhere, and like people kind of like, feels like a little bit quiet, like I'm always watching my back, and after a certain point I'm like, I don't go out at night, which is a weird thing. Never in my life, even living, anywhere, like I've never had that experience.
Right. Wow.
So, anyway, but come visit. It's a beautiful town. It's great. It does have a human poop problem, but it's a great place.
You have good sports teams.
They have good sports teams. It's a beautiful city. Come visit. Just maybe not at night.
Right.
But so I know Pittsburgh was like a really big point of development for you.
Sure.
Did you go to Duquesne, right?
I did.
And Jeff Turner, worked with Jeff Turner?
Yeah, I just actually saw Jeff for the first time in several years. So I went there for graduate school, and I studied with Micah Howard for half of my undergraduate years, and then also just privately. Jeff Grubbs has had a huge influence on my musical life and personal life. He's been a great mentor and still, inspired and, every time I get to hear him play. But that whole section, those guys are just not only great musicians, but just very, very nice people, and they were always helpful, and really, really open with their time. It was, I think I was a little spoiled by that, being there, So
it's a heck of a bass scene, and I, for the first time, went to Pittsburgh for the Pittsburgh Double Bass Symposium in March this year, and actually was just chatting with Amanda Rice Johnston, who I'm not sure if she was around at your time, but she's a bassist freelancing in Pittsburgh now, talking about the city, and I had a great time. And it's cool how much people seem to like working with each other, like between Carnegie Mellon and Duquesne, and then like the even adjacent cities or nearby cities like Buffalo and Cleveland, and it's a special place. They
really value the arts there, which I think there's still a jazz fest that happens in Pittsburgh and an arts fest, and there's just so many great musicians there. I was there for my master's degree, but I was also going out and playing, in the jazz scene there, and then Dwayne Dolphin is a really amazing bass player that lives there that I would get to hear, all the time. So it had a major impact on me,
And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a small town. I actually grew up. The town I grew up in is called Maisery, Ohio. Brookfield, Ohio is the actual high school. Me and Phil Palumbi went to the same high school. So it's just outside of Youngstown. I think we probably both usually just say Youngstown because our town is that small. But so it's right outside of Youngstown. The area is about halfway in between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So it's about an hour either way.
When did you start in music? How'd you get going?
I started on trumpet when I was in 5th grade. And, when they come and, show the different instruments and the trumpet, like so many bass players, I don't know still haven't figured out that connection. But I started on the trumpet, and trumpet did not work for me. So my parents finally let me trade it in. I traded in for my first P bass when I was, I think I was maybe 14, 15. And then it kind of, I took, my first teacher was Jeff Bremer, who's a bass player in Youngstown and freelances around the Cleveland and Youngstown area. And then I started studying with Tony Leonardi, who I did the first half of my undergrad degree with. I kind of enrolled early in college lessons early.
Well, what school was that at?
That was at Youngstown State.
At Youngstown State. Is that where Micah Howard ended up teaching? Or because I know he taught somewhere. Did he teach in Youngstown for a while?
So Tony also taught Micah. He taught Jeff Grubbs and Phil Palumbi also. But Micah came in to teach. Tony got sick after my first or second year, and then Micah came in to kind of take over. So kind of went from there. And then Tony was actually the one that forced me to play in orchestra. He made all of it. We were, I think, other than maybe one. We were all jazz bass players, and he made us play in the orchestra. That was like, I remember the first piece I had to play was Schubert 9. I just was like, there's no way. It's not, my high school didn't have an orchestra, so it was very, very shocking experience, But eventually I came to really love it, and Michael was very influential and pushing me to pursue that. So
Now, so you study there, and you're there, and the Chicago move happens, and remind, because I know you got connected with Jeremy Attanasio. Weren't you guys roommates for a while?
Well, yeah, we were in Civic together. And,
okay.
We were roommates for a year of Civic. Yeah.
Did you move to Chicago before you got into Civic, or had you already moved?
No, I moved. I was still at Duquesne. I think I did like a year of an artist diploma there, and then I got into Civic, and then moved.
And then made the move.
Yeah. And then kind of started freelancing and playing jazz gigs, orchestral gigs, kind of not long after being there. So
I remember something that you always seem to be really kind of self-motivated guy. I remember even like not too long, I mean, I guess it's more long ago than I want to think at this point, but I remember you like playing some excerpts for me. We were both playing the Elgin Symphony on a concert and got there. Am I remembering this right?
I do remember running a list for, whoever was playing. Yeah, it was
like maybe me,
section.
Tim Schafer, a few other people.
Yeah. I don't even remember what audition that would have been, but it's blocked out somewhere but yes, I remember that. Yeah, I was always very whenever people move to town, I just encourage people to do that, play for people there's no better way for someone to get to know you, get to know how you sound than just playing for them. And I think that's more of kind of in the orchestra world, but I did a lot of that, for several years, just you guys, I played for Rob Kassinger a lot, lyric guys, pretty much anybody that was willing.
That's so important, though. That's how you level up,
right?
And it's cool to see you get connected with I remember you Sinfonietta and various projects, in Chicago on the classical side of things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And certainly it's cool to hear the jazz side of things, continuing to evolve and. I just have so many fond memories of playing with you in bass quartet and hanging out in Chicago. And you take me back, man, to see you. It's great. I wish we could have a chance to hang out a little bit more.
Yeah,
but the 2,000 plus miles between us makes it a little harder. But
right. And you're all over the place these days.
I'm all over the place these days, but when I'm home, it's in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see you in Indiana. I want to be respectful of your time because I know there's a ton to see.
Sure.
But we should do this again, do a round 2.
Absolutely.
When things are a little less hectic.
Sure. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, but it's good to chat. Long overdue.
Absolutely.
But thanks for carving. Let me ask my traditional final question. Go back and talk to like Youngstown. Or Youngston? How do you say it? Is it Youngstown?
Youngstown, yeah.
Youngstown.
Yeah.
What is Youngstown? Give that younger Christian some advice, knowing what you know now.
Oh, man. Gosh, that's a tough one. I don't know that I would make any hard decisions differently. I would make better use of my time. That's what I would do. Because now I don't have any time, so I would tell myself to be more efficient with time. Can get a lot done in a small amount of time, as opposed to sitting in a practice room for 8 hours by yourself, doing the same thing over and over again.
It's good advice. And speaking of time, I know time is short here. So, thanks for chatting, man.
Thank you.
Christian, thank you so much for chatting. Check out more about Christian at his website, christiandillingham.com. I'm looking at it right now. Look at that handsome face. What a great guy. What a fun guy to keep in touch with over the years. And it's so great to connect with him and so many other people at ISB 2019. I had a blast. If you came up and said hi, thank you. So great to meet people. And I was so happy to see all our stickers and magnets and swag that we brought disappear. I came back with nothing. I think I came back maybe with one or maybe nothing, I think. Yeah, so that was very cool. And if you weren't able to make it, I hope that this gives you a little taste of what these events are like. We have more bass events, maybe not as big as this, but coming up, and more live coverage. So stay tuned for more. If you like this, you're going to get more of it. If you don't like this and you like the longer form, a little more introspective, not frenetic, you're going to get a lot more of that too. So don't worry. We're not doing just live events forever and ever that are only 10 minutes long, though I do enjoy these chats as well. What else should I talk about? Feedback at contrabassconversations.com. Reach out to me if you haven't, or even if you have, let me know if you like this episode with Christian. Can you tell I improvise these things? Or if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, I would love to hear from you. And I respond to each and every email I get, even if it takes me a couple days to process all of that. I just love hearing from people. Contrabass Conversations is produced by Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Trevor Jones, and award-winning bass maker Mitch Mooring. Learn more about him at mitchmooring.com. And thank you to Krista Copper of the Backstage Creative Podcast for archiving and cataloging everything we do here on the podcast. I'm your host, Jason Heath, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.